today we're here with Lydia Winkler, the co-founder and COO of RentCheck, where they make renting fair and transparent. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Zain.
It's great to have you too. You've chosen a mission that sounds impossible, making renting fair and transparent. I think most renters would say that's the dream. How did you get started on this journey, and tell us a bit about the mission?
Yeah, so it's quite personal to me, and I'm sure most entrepreneurs you've met, it was something that happened to them that was the spark that stimulated, their company. So a little backstory about how RentCheck came to be and why I'm doing this. So I live in New Orleans. RentCheck is headquartered in New Orleans. I moved to New Orleans from San Francisco. I was working in tech out there. But I ultimately knew I wanted to go back to school. So I moved to New Orleans to get my law degree and MBA at Tulane in New Orleans, of course. And after my first year of law school, came time to move. 30 days came and went, and I never got my security deposit back. I was really frustrated by that situation and thought it would be an injustice for me not to pursue it. So I represented myself and I sued my former landlord in small claims court. And that whole process took well over a year and a half, which was stressful and time consuming. But I ultimately won the case. And the reason that I won was because I took meticulous photos of the move out condition of my apartment, which was great that I was happy that it worked out for me. But I realized not everyone has the time, education, and the funds to solve their problems in small claims court. And this happens to more renters than most people think. 30% of all renters will lose some or all their security deposit each year, and that's from not even hearing back from their landlord. So this is a major problem. And a few months later, I was in business school orientation, and I met my now co-founder, who experienced a very similar problem, but from the property manager side. He had been managing properties in and out of state for over 10 years. And for him, documenting apartments to avoid disputes with residents was always time consuming and also expensive because he physically had to go visit these units or pay someone to visit these units.
So you sued your own landlord by yourself after, what did you say, was it a year and a half?
So it was quite an arduous process to actually get my day in court because my landlord evaded service. I had to hire 2 private investigators to serve my landlord because they denied their identity when someone tried to give them papers. I mean, it was insane, but it was so worth it, and there were times I was like, should I still be doing this? Is this a fool's errand? Most people said, why are you wasting your time? You should just focus on law school. But to me, I thought, why am I even going to law school if I can't help myself? What's the point? Something in me just really wanted to see this through. And I'm so glad I did because, if I didn't sue my landlord, I wouldn't have co-founded RentCheck. And so what we do, back to, our mission is to make renting fair and transparent. How we're doing that and addressing that is by providing people the proper documentation they need to make good decisions. So with RentCheck, you can do a move-in inspection, periodic inspections, and involve the resident in the process. So there's no discrepancy over security deposit deductions. And it also empowers the resident to take better care of the unit because if they have access to the move-in inspection, they know, okay, this is what it must look like when I move out if I want my full deposit back.
There's some very interesting stats, and you shared one. Most people expect that they will get a refund on their security deposit when they move out of their apartment, and unless you completely trash the apartment, right? What's, I think, shocking is that sometimes no reason is given at all. I believe 36% in one survey found that landlords offered no explanation at all for why they were withholding security deposits. And that must be the most frustrating thing possible. And to see how the system is designed, where you have to hire private investigators and you have to serve discovery and you have to go through court. The system is designed to break you. I mean, your average renter is trying to stay afloat, and to take on the role of being an attorney and suing your landlord is a system that just is not conducive to good outcomes, which is unfortunate. Why? What do you think's really happening here? Are landlords abusing the process, or is it just a miscommunication somewhere? You know, the renter thinks that they left the place in great condition, and the landlord doesn't agree, or is there something nefarious going on here?
So I will say not all landlords are bad landlords. I definitely had a bad landlord. But we sell to property management companies. Those are our customers. We say we serve our customer's customer, which is the resident, but property management companies pay us a monthly subscription to use RentCheck and to enable their residents to be involved in the inspection process. Most property managers, they want great residents. They want residents that are going to stay there. They want residents that are going to pay rent on time, treat the property well. So there's less turnover in between tenants. So you can decrease the number of vacancy months, which is what ends up killing property management companies. That 2.5 average months in between residents is what kills them. And so what we do is, if you're regularly getting visibility on your unit, or you can have your resident do a pre-move out inspection, you can address those issues before that resident moves out, ultimately decreasing the number of vacancy months. But overall, I'll just say there hasn't been proper documentation or tools that enable property managers to give their residents, the information they need over what they're deducting for. Most inspections are done on pen and paper. Only 10% of the market is using some type of digital inspection tool. And it's impossible to use written words to accurately verify what you've seen because it's subjective. It's just completely subjective. So.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the car rental experience. And today, we're at least making some progress in favor of the car rental companies, actually. If you return I'm sure many people try to game it, where it's like, when should I go to the petrol station, fuel up the gas, and then let there be some distance so I get some free mileage before I give it back? Well, now they can automatically detect the level of fuel in the tank and bill you in increments, and you can't play games anymore. And that's a fairer system. But I'm sure many of our viewers have gone through the situation where they rent a car and they don't take accurate photos and videos, and then they're dinged with damages that they really didn't cause. And it's painful to fight that, but there's a lot more to lose as well when it's your own home that you're renting. Now there's sort of this feeling in the real estate industry that they always say, treat this place like it's your own home, right? Renters don't do that. There's this assumption that renters cause a lot of damage there. You're going to get more wear and tear, faster depreciation. You're going to have unit turn costs, and there's a budget for unit turn costs in real estate too. Is this true? Do you believe that renters don't take care of the apartment well, and therefore the whole security deposit industry, because it is somewhat of an industry, is there to deal with that underlying problem?
No, I disagree. I think it depends on the renter. I don't think we can lump them all in one group, but I will say it's all about messaging and education. I think the future of renting is resident involvement and resident empowerment. Being able to, for example, make sure that air filters have been changed. That's something we see a lot of our customers do. They're sending monthly maintenance check requests. So residents change the AC filter once a month, or smoke detector batteries have been changed. A lot of safety features, all about upkeeping the unit. And so if you're educating the resident about what needs to be done, it creates this perception for the resident of, oh, my property manager, my landlord cares that I am living in a safe place, cares that there isn't mold, cares that the batteries have been changed so they're not in violation of anything. And I think when you change that narrative, it creates a less adversarial relationship, which is what people think of. Like the term landlord, people have like disdain, and really it's a service. Not everybody wants to bother owning a home. And I think we've learned that now, especially in light of the pandemic, is people want freedom of movement, and renting enables you to do that.
Yeah, and you're right about the narratives, and there's narratives on both sides, right? The institutional investors, not all of them treat their core end customer, which is the tenant, with that respect. I've been in places, I've dealt with different buyers and sellers and seen parts of the real estate industry, and there is certainly this perception, that tenants are just going to damage the property. You can't trust them, and if you don't have the security deposit, then as an investor, you can really lose out. And then I've been on the other side too. I didn't buy a home for the longest period. I'm one of those people that believes it's sometimes better just to rent than it is to buy your own place. There's a whole generation of people like this now, sort of this nomadic lifestyle coming out. But as a renter, it really feels like the system's against you. Not only are there all these rules sometimes feeling like they're one-sided, and I mean rules that you have to sign, right? The agreements you have to sign. It's also hard to get a place, especially right now. And once you find a place, there's so much power and there's so much abuse of rights. That's why we have things like, in California, the California, I think it's the Fair Employment and Housing Act. And you have federal laws and state laws to prevent things like discrimination and rules around what the maximum amount is. And it varies state by state, but the amount you can charge for security deposits and, the circumstances which you can use and can't use the security deposit. So your vision for the future, are security deposits going to exist? Are we going to move to a different type of system?
We've already seen that there are options. There are security deposit replacement, they're more like insurance. And a lot of those companies have reached out to us. But one of the things that they have an issue with is they don't have a way to actually verify how the tenant left the unit once the resident moved out. So that's a problem. I don't think security deposits are going away. But I do think there's going to be, more reassurance if we have anything to do with it, which we do. And at the rate in which we're growing, things are changing, where people are going to have more security knowing that they're going to get it back. Because they're not going to be docked for damage they didn't do, because there's a library of knowledge of everything that was documented throughout the duration of their lease, and you can't doctor that or change that, or if you did have a disgruntled tenant or you were or vice versa, now you can take all of your RentCheck inspections into evidence because we're an arbitrary third party and they're time stamped and submit them, etc.